Hey everyone, and welcome back. You know how sometimes you hear about something like a belief system, but it's rarely ever explored in depth? Well, that's what we're doing today. We're taking a deep dive into Jainism.
It's a fascinating one.
It is, and I think it's often misunderstood. We're going to really unpack what's at the heart of it
Yeah.
and why it still fascinates people centuries later.
Right. I mean, it's true. It often gets, relegated to footnotes. And it's interesting because Jainism really flips the script on what we usually assume about religion, especially when it comes to time.
Right. Yeah. Like just the idea that there's 24 Tirthankaras, these enlightened guides, and they span millions of years. That first one, Ritrafadeva, existing before recorded history,
Right.
it really makes you think about the long view, doesn't it?
It challenges our very notion of history. Jainism, it doesn't see time as linear. It sees it as cyclical. It's not about just one life. It's about this endless journey that the soul is on, accumulating wisdom and, shedding that karma.
Which leads us to those three pillars. I think a lot of people are curious about Ahimsa and a Kantavada and a Parigraha.
Yeah.
Because it's not just like a list of rules. It's like a whole different way of seeing your place in the world.
Exactly. And Ahimsa, it's often simplified as just nonviolence, but it's really about recognizing the life force,
Yeah.
the jiva in everything.
Right.
And that's why you see so many Jains are vegan or vegetarian.
Right.
It's about minimizing harm as much as possible.
And it's not even just about what you eat. It's like woven into everything they do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's Anakamtavada.
That one's a mouthful.
This is the one, honestly, that like made me pause and really think about it. Because it's this idea that no one person has a monopoly on the truth.
Huh.
And it's like that classic story of, what is it? The blind men and the elephant, right?
Yes.
They're all feeling a different part and they think they know the whole picture.
And who's to say which one is right?
Right.
Right. Anekantavada really pushes us to go beyond dogma. It urges us to consider multiple perspectives. It's a powerful, I'd say, antidote to a lot of the polarization we see today.
Right. It makes you think twice before getting, stuck in your own point of view.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we have a Parigraha, the practice of detachment.
Right.
Now, this isn't just about decluttering your house. This goes much deeper.
It's about freeing yourself from those attachments, both physical and emotional, that keep the soul, tethered to the cycle of suffering and rebirth.
Right.
And the more we cling, the heavier the burden. Right.
So Jain monks and nuns, they embody this in a radical way.
Right.
Renouncing possessions and embracing a life of simplicity. But how does this apply to someone who's not ready to give up all their earthly belongings?
It's about recognizing that desire itself.
Yeah.
Right? Desire is the root of suffering.
Right.
The less we need, the freer we become. I think that's a pretty radical concept, no matter how you practice it.
So we've got this profound respect for all life, this flexible approach to truth, and then a call to detach from material desires. So how does that actually play out in the beliefs of Jainism?
Right.
We were talking about souls, karma, those cosmic cycles you mentioned.
Exactly. Jainism paints such a fascinating picture of this universe, right? Where the soul, the jiva, is on this continuous journey through countless lifetimes. And it's not seen as a punishment. It's seen as this process of purification.
In karma, it's not some abstract force. It's like this tangible substance that clings to the soul based on our actions. Imagine it's like glitter. If you're doing good, it's like the rainbow sparkles. But if you're making bad choices, it's like that, dull, hard to remove kind of glitter.
I like that. That's a good visual.
And just like with glitter, it takes conscious effort to shake off the negative, accumulate the good.
Right.
And that brings us to, the core of Jainism's cosmological view, which is this idea of rebirth.
Right.
8,400,000 birth situations, to be precise, makes you rethink that whole YOLO thing. With that many lives, you've got a lot of choices to get it right.
Indeed, each lifetime is a chance to learn, to grow, and to ultimately achieve liberation, or what they call moksha.
Right.
Freeing ourselves from that cycle of death and rebirth.
So every action, every thought, every choice, it all carries weight because it's not just about this life. It's about this endless journey that the soul's on.
Precisely. But rather than get overwhelmed by that, Jains actually see it as empowering.
Okay.
It means that even the smallest act of kindness, the tiniest effort toward ethical conduct, it has this ripple effect.
Wow.
Across lifetimes.
Yeah.
It's never too late to choose a better path.
So that's actually really encouraging to think about.
Yeah.
But with such a vast view of time and existence, how do Jains approach daily life? Because we can't all become monks and meditate in caves, right?
Well, there are specific practices for those seeking that monastic life.
Right.
But Jainism also offers this practical framework for ethical living that I think anyone can adapt to their own circumstances. Think of it kind of like a tiered system.
Okay, like levels in a video game, but for spiritual growth?
You could say that.
Yeah.
For those ready to take that ultimate leap, you've got the 5 major vows, right? Nonviolence, truthfulness, non-stealing, celibacy, and non-attachment.
Right.
Those are the foundation for those monks and nuns.
So that's like the full commitment to a aparigraha that we were talking about.
Exactly.
But what about the rest of us just, playing the game at a different level?
Well, Jainism is actually really unique in that it recognizes that not everyone is at the same point in their spiritual journey.
Okay.
So for those living in the world, there are modified versions of these vows that are, a bit less strict.
So it's not about being perfect, it's about making an effort.
Exactly.
To live ethically.
Exactly.
Okay.
And beyond those kind of core vows, you've got these additional practices like the supplementary vows you mentioned earlier.
Right.
And that's where things get really interesting because they offer a more personalized approach to spiritual development.
Okay, yeah, the gunavratas.
Yes.
Those sounded interesting because it's not just about avoiding harm, it's about actively cultivating positive qualities.
Right. Take Big Vrata, for example.
Okay.
It's about limiting the physical space you occupy, whether it's a room, a house, or even a plot of land.
Okay.
It's a physical reminder to kind of live simply and minimize your impact on the environment.
It's almost a form of mindfulness.
Exactly.
Like being aware of the space you take up.
Precisely. Then you've got Bolakopavaparamata, which is a mouthful, but it's basically about setting limits on your consumption, on your indulgence.
Oh, okay.
And that's a direct challenge, I think, to our consumerist culture today, right?
Right.
It encourages us to examine our needs versus our wants.
Finding contentment with less, breaking free from that constant desire for more, more, more.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And lastly, you've got Anarthadandaviramanuvrata, another mouthful.
I know, we're going to have to put these in the show notes.
Right. And that one's a commitment to avoid those pointless sins, those harmful activities. It's a reminder to be intentional, even with the small things, because they all contribute to that karmic balance.
It's a call to just live consciously.
Exactly.
Recognizing every choice has an impact.
Exactly. And then you've got the 6 Shavratas, which focus more on the discipline, the spiritual training.
Okay, so these are like the stepping stones
Yeah.
on the path to liberation.
Exactly.
Okay.
Samayika, for example, is the practice of setting aside time for meditation, for contemplation, even if it's just for a few minutes each day.
Right.
It's about creating that space for stillness and self-reflection in our busy lives.
To connect with that inner quiet amidst all the noise.
Precisely. And then there's Desavrata, restricting your movement to certain areas.
That one takes some serious commitment.
It does. It can be as simple as choosing to stay within a particular city or region for a set period of time, or as challenging as limiting yourself to a single room
Wow.
or dwelling.
Okay, so it's a physical representation of setting boundaries, like literally and metaphorically.
It is. And of course, we can't forget upavasa, the practice of fasting,
Right.
which is common in many faiths,
Mm-hmm.
but it holds deep significance in Jainism.
It's a way to purify the body and mind.
Exactly.
Break free from those cravings and addictions.
Precisely.
Okay.
And then lastly, there's Atiti Samvibhaga, which involves offering hospitality to wandering ascetics.
Oh, okay.
It's a way to kind of show respect for those who have dedicated their lives to spiritual pursuits.
And to practice generosity and compassion
Absolutely.
in a tangible way.
Yes,
Okay, so the supplementary vows, those are like a whole other layer
they do.
to the practice.
They offer this way for individuals to tailor their spiritual practice to their own needs and aspirations, right?
Okay.
It's a personalized approach to liberation.
So we've got this tiered system of vows and practices, but I understand there are also different denominations within Jainism,
You're right.
each with their own unique interpretations and traditions.
You're right. And the two main ones you'll hear about are the Digambaras and the Svetambaras.
Right.
And their differences, I think, highlight how nuanced even these ancient faiths can be.
Right. And the Digambaras are the ones that I'm always like, oh, because of the whole sky-clad thing.
It's certainly the most visually striking aspect of their practice, right?
Right.
They believe that true renunciation requires this complete detachment from all possessions,
Wow.
including clothing.
Okay.
It's a very radical expression of a paragraph.
Yeah. And it's such a powerful statement about just like the illusion of material possessions.
That is.
And the importance of inner purity.
It is. And it's important to remember that the female monastics, the arikas, they do wear simple white saris.
Okay, and then the Svetambaras are the white-clad ones, right?
Exactly.
So they believe that wearing seamless white garments is still compatible with non-attachment.
Right. It's really just different interpretations of the same principle.
Okay, so what else sets them apart?
Well, there are some variations in their monastic rules, their dietary restrictions, even their interpretations of the teachings.
Okay.
For example, the Svetambaras accept a text called the Kalpa Sutra.
Okay.
The Digambaras do not.
And there's that interesting detail about Malanatha, the 19th Tirthankara, who is believed to have been female by the Svetambaras.
Right.
The Digambaras don't share that belief.
They do not.
Okay, so those seem like kind of small differences, but I'm sure they represent like these bigger theological debates that have shaped, Jainism over the centuries.
Exactly.
It's a reminder that even within, a single faith, there can be a whole spectrum
Of course.
of beliefs and interpretations.
Of course.
And speaking of interpretations, I'm curious about how those teachings have been passed down through generations. Are we talking ancient texts, oral traditions, a bit of both?
Jainism has a really rich literary tradition.
Okay.
Their most sacred texts are called the Agamas, and they're believed to contain the teachings of the Tirthankaras themselves.
So like the Jain equivalent of the Hindu Vedas or the Buddhist sutras?
Precisely. But here again, we see a difference between the Digambaras and Svetambaras.
Okay.
The Svetambaras believe they've preserved 45 of the original 50 Jain scriptures.
Okay.
The Digambaras, however, believe that all of the originals were lost at some point.
Oh, wow.
And their current texts are reconstructions based on oral traditions
Wow, okay.
and the insights of their spiritual leaders.
So two different branches, two different views on even their scriptures.
Exactly.
That's fascinating. So much is lost to time.
Right.
It makes you wonder how these different groups have kind of maintained their own lineages of knowledge.
It's a reminder of the fluidity, right?
Yeah.
Of these religious traditions.
Yeah.
How they evolve, how they adapt over time, and how different groups interpret and preserve their sacred narratives.
It adds another layer of complexity to our understanding of Jainism.
It does.
Now, I know we've talked a lot about the differences between these two major denominations, but what unites them? What are the core principles that all Jains hold dear?
At their heart, both Digambaras and Svetambaras share this profound belief in what they call the three jewels of Jainism.
Okay.
Right faith, right knowledge, and right conduct.
Right faith, right knowledge, right conduct.
And these principles really do guide their actions, their thoughts, their aspirations, regardless of their specific, interpretations or practices.
It's a simple framework, but it's so powerful.
It is.
For living an ethical and meaningful life.
It is. And it's a reminder that despite their differences, all Jains share a common goal.
Okay.
To achieve liberation from that cycle of suffering and attain moksha, that final blissful state.
And that shared goal is what ultimately unites them.
Exactly.
Now let's shift gears just a little bit and talk about how Jainism fits into like the broader landscape of Indian religions.
Right.
I mean, it's often mentioned alongside Hinduism and Buddhism.
It is.
But what are the key distinctions?
Well, all three religions originated in ancient India. They share some common threads, like the concepts of karma and rebirth.
Right.
But there are also some fundamental differences that set them apart.
Like they both, Jainism and Buddhism, they reject the authority of the Vedas.
Exactly.
Right.
They are considered Gnostica traditions, meaning they don't accept the Vedas as the ultimate source of knowledge.
Okay.
They also both emphasize nonviolence and compassion as core ethical principles.
But even within those shared principles, there are nuances, right?
Absolutely.
Like we were talking about with Ahimsa.
Absolutely.
And then when it comes to the soul, Jainism aligns more closely, I think, with Hinduism in believing in the existence of an eternal soul.
Right. The jiva.
Right.
Buddhism, on the other hand, teaches anatta, the idea that there's no permanent self.
Right. No soul.
No soul, exactly.
Okay, so they agree on some points, they diverge on others.
They do.
It's like they're all exploring different facets of the same spiritual reality.
That's a great way to put it. They are all seeking truth and liberation. but they offer different paths, different perspectives.
And it's interesting how these three religions, despite their differences, have coexisted for centuries in India, sometimes influencing each other, sometimes challenging each other.
Right.
It really speaks to the diversity and tolerance of Indian culture.
It does. It shows that these different belief systems can coexist.
Right.
And even enrich each other.
Yeah, and inform each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, before we move on, there's one more key distinction I want to highlight.
Yeah.
Jainism, unlike Hinduism, rejects the concept of Brahman.
Brahman.
So in Hinduism, Brahman is considered the ultimate reality.
Right.
The divine ground of all existence.
Yeah. Okay.
Jainism doesn't have a single equivalent concept.
So while Hinduism seeks union with this ultimate reality, Jainism focuses on liberating the soul from this cycle of rebirth.
Exactly. It's a different approach to spiritual liberation, emphasizing individual effort, ethical conduct as the means to achieve moksha.
It's like two sides of the same coin, both seeking to transcend suffering, but through different paths.
Exactly.
It's amazing how these ancient traditions offer such diverse and nuanced perspectives on the nature of reality.
It is.
The meaning of life, the path to enlightenment.
It is. And it's a testament to that enduring power of human curiosity.
Right.
And the search for meaning that these traditions continue to thrive and inspire millions of people around the world.
Speaking of inspiring, one of the things that always captivates me about Jainism is the art.
Yes.
Their artistic heritage.
Beautiful, beautiful art.
The temples, the sculptures, the intricate carvings. It's absolutely breathtaking.
Jain art and architecture, it's a testament to their faith, to their cultural legacy. And they really do offer this tangible expression of their beliefs and values.
What are some of the key features that, distinguish Jain art? Like, I've always been struck by the serenity, the tranquility that seems to emanate from a lot of their sculptures.
You're right, that sense of peace and contemplation.
Yeah.
That's a hallmark of Jain art. And they often depict the Tirthankaras, those enlightened beings, in these meditative poses.
Right.
Conveying this sense of inner stillness, spiritual mastery.
And the sculptures are often so ornate, with these intricate details, symbolic elements.
Yes.
What's the significance behind those?
They're not merely decorative, right?
Right.
Those details convey deeper meanings and stories.
Okay.
For example, you'll often see the Tirthankaras depicted with a Srivatsa symbol on their chest.
Okay.
That represents auspiciousness and spiritual attainment.
Okay.
You might see them with a halo, symbolizing their enlightenment, or with a wheel of Dharma, representing the teachings of Jainism.
It's like a visual language.
Exactly.
Expressing spiritual truths.
Precisely. And the temples themselves, they're often architectural marvels.
Oh, yeah.
They're designed to inspire awe and reverence.
Wow.
Inviting contemplation, reflection.
Yeah. Have you ever been to... I've always loved the pictures of the Dewara temples in Rajasthan.
I have.
Yeah.
They are incredible.
Those intricate marble carvings.
The craftsmanship is awe-inspiring.
Yeah. What was that experience like?
The Dewara temples are a prime example of Jain architectural mastery.
Wow.
Each temple is a symphony of marble with these delicate carvings depicting scenes from Jain mythology, the lives of the Tirthankaras, and these intricate floral and geometric patterns.
It's like stepping into a sacred geometry textbook brought to life.
It is. The play of light and shadow on the white marble, the serene atmosphere, the intricate details, it all combines to create this atmosphere of peace and contemplation.
Are there any other notable temples that you would recommend adding to the travel list for anyone who's intrigued by Jainism?
Oh, there are so many. The Palatana temples in Gujarat are considered one of the holiest pilgrimage sites for Jains.
Oh, wow.
Located atop Mount Shatrunjaya, it's a complex of hundreds of temples, each one unique and exquisitely carved.
Hundreds. It's like a city of temples.
It truly is.
Wow.
And then there's the monolithic statue of Gomateshvara in Shravanabelagola, Karnataka.
Yes.
It's a 57-foot-tall statue of Bahubali, a Jain saint carved from a single granite boulder.
I've seen pictures of that. It's awe-inspiring, not just in its size, but like the skill.
It's incredible.
The dedication to create that.
It's hard to put into words the feeling of standing before something so ancient and monumental.
Yeah.
It's a reminder of the enduring power of faith and the human capacity for artistic expression.
It sounds like a pilgrimage to these sites would be a deeply moving experience, not just for Jains, but for anyone interested in art, in architecture, in history, in spirituality.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. They offer a glimpse into this rich and ancient tradition, inviting us to appreciate the beauty and wisdom that Jainism has to offer.
Speaking of wisdom, I'm curious about the historical journey of Jainism
Yeah.
because it's an ancient faith, but it's also a living tradition that has, evolved and adapted over time.
Jainism has a long and fascinating history,
Yeah.
filled with periods of growth, decline, adaptation, and resilience.
Hmm.
And its story is really interwoven with the social, political, and religious landscape of India.
So let's rewind the clock a little bit. Where does the story of Jainism begin?
While the exact origins are shrouded in the mists of time,
Right.
we know that Jainism emerged in ancient India, likely predating Hinduism as we know it today.
Okay.
Remember Rishabhadeva, that first Tirthankara we talked about?
Yeah.
He's said to have lived millions of years ago.
Right.
Now, while there's no historical evidence to support such a vast timescale,
Right.
it points to the ancient roots of this tradition.
It shows how differently they think about time
Exactly.
with the cyclical cosmology.
Right.
But moving to a slightly more historically grounded timeline, we have Parshvanatha, the 23rd Tirthankara,
Yes.
who is believed to have lived in the 9th century BCE.
Right, a little bit more tangible.
A little more tangible than millions of years.
Exactly.
And then we have Mahavira
Yes, the 24th and last Tirthankara
of this current time cycle.
of this current time cycle, that's right.
So we've got this long lineage of Tirthankaras.
You do.
Stretching back into antiquity.
Yes.
But when did Jainism really start to gain traction as, a religious movement?
Well, Jainism really flourished during the reign of Emperor Ashoka in the 3rd century BCE.
Oh, okay.
He was a powerful ruler who embraced nonviolence and promoted religious tolerance.
Right.
And his patronage helped spread Jainism throughout India.
Ashoka's the one with those rock edicts, right? Promoting ethical conduct.
That's right, that's right.
That's so interesting that he was a patron of Jainism, even though he later converted to Buddhism.
He did.
It really shows the fluidity of religious beliefs and practices during that time.
It does. It was a period of great intellectual and spiritual ferment in India, with all these various schools of thought and religious movements emerging and interacting with one another.
So Jainism had its moment in the sun.
It did.
But like all things, it experienced periods of both growth and decline.
Of course.
What were some of the challenges that it faced over the centuries?
Well, it faced competition from other faiths,
Right.
particularly Hinduism and Buddhism.
Of course.
And then there was the arrival of Islam in India,
Right.
which presented a new set of challenges.
Right, because then they become a religious minority.
They do. They become a religious minority under Muslim rule.
How did they navigate that shift in power?
It's interesting. They employed a combination of strategies,
Okay.
depending on the political climate and the rulers in power.
Right.
Sometimes they migrated to more remote areas to try and preserve their way of life.
Okay.
Other times they negotiated with Muslim rulers to secure their rights and freedoms to practice their faith.
It was a delicate dance.
It was a delicate balancing act.
Yeah.
And it highlights the resilience of the Jain community.
Right.
Despite facing persecution and pressure to convert, they managed to maintain their traditions
Wow.
and their identity through centuries of change and upheaval.
It's a testament to the strength of their convictions.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, there was the British colonial period.
Right.
How did that impact the Jain community?
Well, the British generally adopted a policy of religious tolerance,
Okay.
although their presence did lead to some challenges for Jains.
Right.
Remember the Digambara monks and their practice of nudity?
Yes.
That clashed with British sensibilities,
Right.
and it actually led to some legal battles.
Really? What happened?
Jain leaders challenged those laws, arguing that they infringed on their religious freedom, and eventually, after India gained independence, those laws were overturned.
It's a good reminder that even seemingly secular laws can have these unintended consequences for religious minorities.
Absolutely.
It's important to be mindful of those impacts and to, protect religious freedom for all.
Absolutely. And it speaks to the importance of interfaith dialogue and understanding.
So that's a long and winding historical road that Jainism has traveled.
It is.
Where does it stand today? What's its place in the modern world?
Despite facing those various challenges throughout its history,
Yeah.
Jainism has not just survived, but thrived.
Wow.
It continues to be this vibrant faith with a strong sense of community and a commitment to its core values.
And while it may be a relatively small religion globally, with an estimated 4 through 5 million followers worldwide,
Right.
it has a significant impact, I think, on Indian society.
You're right. Jains are known for their business acumen, their philanthropy, and their contributions to social causes. They
The
often punch above their weight when it comes to making a positive impact.
I've heard that they have a strong tradition of vegetarianism and environmentalism.
They do.
Yeah.
Their emphasis on Ahimsa, right?
Right.
It extends beyond just humans to encompass all living beings in the natural world. So they are often at the forefront of movements promoting animal welfare, environmental protection, and sustainable living.
It's inspiring to see how this ancient wisdom can be applied to very contemporary issues.
Absolutely.
It shows that these traditions still have something valuable to offer
They do.
to the modern world.
They do. Jainism's emphasis on nonviolence, compassion, ethical conduct, and interconnectedness. It's incredibly relevant in today's world, right?
Yeah.
As we grapple with issues of conflict, environmental degradation, social fragmentation.
Right. It's like we need that message now more than ever.
Exactly.
Like even those small acts of kindness and compassion can have this ripple effect,
Yes.
creating positive change.
Exactly. And that brings us to a key concept in Jainism, parasparopagraho jivanam.
Okay. How do you say that one more time?
Parasparopagraho jivanam, which basically means souls render service to one another.
That's a beautiful concept.
It is.
It reminds us that we are all connected.
We are.
Our actions impact one another.
Precisely.
It's a call to action, encouraging us to live in a way that benefits not just ourselves, but all beings.
Exactly.
It's a message that resonates really deeply, especially in a world that often feels increasingly divided
You're right.
and disconnected.
Jainism offers this different way of seeing the world, one based on interconnectedness, compassion, and mutual respect.
Okay, deep divers, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
We've explored the history, the beliefs, the practices, the art and architecture, and even how Jainism kind of fits into the broader landscape of Indian religion.
We have. We journeyed from those ancient origins to its present-day expressions, uncovering all those layers of complexity and nuance.
And through it all, we've seen how this, relatively small faith offers profound wisdom and practical guidance
It does.
for how to navigate the complexities of life.
It's a reminder that even these ancient traditions can hold valuable lessons for the modern world.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, there are a couple more aspects of Jainism that I think are worth exploring.
Okay.
Yet their unique cosmological views and then their vibrant festivals.
Those are both fascinating topics that offer, I think, further insights into the richness and depth of this ancient faith.
So let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Now, when we talk about cosmology, we're talking about the Jain view of like the universe,
Right.
And from what I understand, it's quite different from the way that, we typically think about the cosmos.
It is, yeah.
Especially in the West.
Jain cosmology is fascinating. It's this blend of science, philosophy, and spirituality.
Okay.
And it really does present this unique and often mind-bending view of the universe
Okay.
and our place within it.
So how do Jains view the universe? Is it eternal? Did it have a beginning?
They believe it's eternal without beginning or end.
Okay.
So it's a radical departure
Right. From the Big Bang.
from the Big Bang theory that we're so familiar with.
Right. Exactly.
So instead of that single creation event, they envision this cyclical process of expansion and contraction.
So the universe is breathing.
Yes.
It's breathing in, breathing out, expanding,
Yeah.
contracting.
And within this eternal universe, there are countless lokas or realms of existence,
Realms.
like different dimensions or planes.
You could think of it that way, yeah.
These lokas are inhabited by a variety of beings.
Yeah.
From humans and animals to celestial beings and even, hellish creatures.
And where do we fit into all of this?
All right.
Where do humans reside?
Humans, along with other earthly beings, reside in the middle part of the universe.
Okay.
Above us are those celestial realms where deities and other elevated beings reside.
Okay.
And below us are the lower realms where hellish beings are reborn to work out their karma.
So it's like a multi-level universe.
Yes.
With all these different realms that are interconnected, influencing one another.
Yes.
And through it all, the soul is on this journey.
Yes, the soul, or jiva, is on this continuous journey
Wow.
through these different realms. And this journey is driven by karma, right?
Right.
The actions and intentions we accumulate throughout our countless lifetimes.
So our actions in this life don't just have consequences in this realm, but potentially in other realms as well.
Exactly.
Wow.
Our karma shapes our destiny It determines where we are reborn, what kind of existence we will experience.
That's a lot of pressure.
It's a powerful reminder to act ethically
Right.
and
Yeah.
compassionately, knowing that our choices have these far-reaching consequences.
But it also suggests a certain degree of agency, right?
It does.
We have the power to shape our own destiny,
We do.
to choose a path that leads towards liberation
Absolutely.
rather than suffering.
Precisely. Jainism empowers us to take responsibility for our actions and to strive for that spiritual growth,
Right.
knowing that we have the potential to break free from that cycle of suffering and
Yeah.
achieve moksha.
It's both a message of hope and empowerment.
It is.
You know, we're not just victims of fate.
Right.
We're active participants in our own spiritual evolution.
You got it. Exactly.
Now, I know we've talked a lot about how Jains view the universe, like the realms, but what about the shape of the universe?
Yes.
Do they have, like, a model in mind?
They do, and it's a bit unusual.
What is it?
They believe that the universe is shaped like a human torso.
A torso?
A torso.
Like with arms and legs and...
Yeah. Just the torso.
Okay.
They envision the upper part of the universe as the celestial realm.
Okay.
The middle part, where humans reside, as the earthly realm.
Okay.
And the lower part as the underworld, where those hellish beings are reborn.
Wow. That's very different from how we usually think about it.
It is. But it's a powerful image, don't you think? It connects the universe to the human form.
Right.
Reminding us that we are microcosms of the macrocosm.
It's like a giant cosmic mirror just reflecting our existence back to us.
Exactly. And just as our physical body is this vessel for our soul, so too is the universe this vessel for countless souls on their individual journeys.
That's a beautiful way to think about it. It's humbling.
It is, and it highlights the interconnectedness of all things, right?
Yeah.
Our actions, our thoughts, our intentions, they have this ripple effect, impacting not just ourselves, but the entire universe.
So even those small acts of kindness, compassion,
Absolutely,
have this positive impact.
They do, and on...
The flip side, negative actions can create disharmony.
Precisely, yeah.
Wow.
It's all about recognizing that we are all part of something much larger than ourselves.
Right.
And our actions have these far-reaching consequences.
It's a powerful reminder, I think, to live ethically.
Absolutely.
And consciously.
It is. And it brings us back to the importance of Ahimsa, that nonviolence, right?
Yeah.
As this guiding principle in life.
Because harming another being, it's not just harming that individual, it's like disrupting the harmony of the entire universe.
Exactly. It's a profound concept that really challenges us to rethink our relationship with ourselves, with others, and with the natural world.
Okay, deep divers. I think we have successfully navigated the mind-bending world of Jain cosmology.
It's a trip, isn't it?
It is. We explored their unique view of time, that cyclical nature of the universe, the existence of multiple realms, and even the shape of the cosmos as this human torso.
It's a fascinating and complex system of beliefs.
It really is. It challenges everything we think we know. Now, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about something a little more, I guess, down to earth. Jain festivals.
Yes.
They sound fun.
Jain festivals are great. They are this vibrant expression of their faith, and they offer, I think, a really cool glimpse into their rich cultural traditions.
Okay.
They're joyous occasions filled with music, dance, food, and community gatherings.
What are some of the key festivals that Jains celebrate?
One of the most important is Parishana, an 8-day festival observed by Svetambaras and Dasalakshana Parva, a 10-day festival observed by Digambaras.
Okay, what do those festivals, like, what does that entail?
Yeah.
What's the spiritual significance behind them?
They're both periods of intense spiritual reflection and renewal, with a strong emphasis on fasting, prayer, and self-discipline.
Okay.
So it's a time for Jains to deepen their connection to their faith, to purify their souls, and to practice forgiveness.
Kind of like a time for introspection, repentance, and starting anew.
Exactly.
Yeah.
During these festivals, Jains often fast for days,
Wow.
abstaining from food and even water.
Wow.
They also spend time meditating, reciting scriptures, and attending lectures by religious leaders.
And there's a special emphasis, right, on Ahimsa during this time.
Absolutely. Jains make extra efforts to avoid harming any living being during this sacred time, so they might release captive animals, refrain from cutting down trees, and really just avoid any activities that could potentially cause harm, even unintentionally.
It's a really beautiful expression of their commitment to nonviolence and reverence for all life.
It is. And on the last day of Parishana, there's a special ritual called Samvatsari.
Samvatsari, what's that all about?
It's a day of atonement and forgiveness. So Jains seek forgiveness from anyone they may have wronged, either intentionally or unintentionally throughout the year.
Oh, wow. And how do they do that? Is there a specific prayer or a ritual?
They say Mikami Dukadam or Kamat Kamna,
Okay.
which essentially means if I have offended you in any way, knowingly or unknowingly, in thought, word, or action, then I seek your forgiveness.
That's really powerful. It's a good reminder that we all make mistakes. And seeking forgiveness is like essential for healing
It is.
and maintaining that harmony.
It is. It's about letting go of past grievances and starting anew.
Okay. Are there any other like important Jain festivals that we should know about?
Yes, Mahavir Janma Kalyanak
Okay.
celebrates the birth of Mahavira, the 24th Tirthankara,
Okay.
and it's this joyous occasion filled with processions, prayers, and acts of charity.
Okay.
Jains decorate their homes, they visit temples, and participate in community celebrations.
Sounds festive.
It is very uplifting.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's Diwali, the Festival of Lights.
Oh, right. Right.
Now, Diwali is celebrated by Hindus, Sikhs, and Jains alike.
Right.
But each faith kind of has its own interpretation of the festival.
So what is the significance for Jains?
For Jains, Diwali marks the anniversary of Mahavira's attainment of moksha.
So his liberation?
Yes, his liberation from that cycle of death and rebirth.
So it's a celebration of enlightenment, of liberation.
Exactly. It's this joyous occasion symbolizing the victory of light over darkness, knowledge over ignorance.
Right.
Jains celebrate by lighting lamps, sharing sweets, and reflecting on the teachings of Mahavira.
It's amazing how these festivals, they blend that spiritual significance with the cultural traditions.
They do.
It's just this vibrant tapestry of faith and celebration.
They offer, I think, this window into the heart of Jainism, showcasing its values, beliefs, and practices.
Okay, deep divers, we've journeyed through the cosmos, explored the history, the philosophy of Jainism. We even got a glimpse of the vibrancy of their festivals.
Been quite a journey.
It has been an incredible journey of discovery, uncovering the layers of this, ancient and often misunderstood faith.
And we've seen how this ancient tradition, while often overlooked, really does offer profound wisdom and this practical guidance for how to navigate life's complexities, right?
From the concept of Ahimsa, with its radical compassion for all living beings, to Anekantavada, urging us to embrace those multiple perspectives. Jainism really challenges us to see the world and ourselves in a whole new light.
It does, and let's not forget aparigraha.
Right.
That call to detach from those material possessions and find that true contentment.
Right.
That resonates, I think, especially deeply in our current age of consumerism and this constant desire for more.
It's a reminder that true happiness and fulfillment, it doesn't come from what we own, it comes from within.
Exactly. And when we cultivate that inner peace, that contentment, it ripples outwards.
Oh, outwards.
Impacting how we interact with others and the world around us.
We've also seen how their emphasis on ethical conduct, self-reflection, responsibility for our actions, it offers this path towards spiritual growth, towards liberation.
And those are principles that transcend, I think, any particular religion or belief system.
Right.
They're universal values that can guide us towards living those more meaningful and fulfilling lives.
So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into Jainism, what are some key takeaways that our listeners can, carry with them?
Well, I think one takeaway is the power of perspective, right? Jainism reminds us that there are multiple ways of seeing the world, and embracing those different viewpoints, I think, can lead to greater understanding and tolerance.
To step outside of our own limited perspectives and approach the world with more open minds.
Absolutely. And another key takeaway is that interconnectedness of all things. Our actions, no matter how small, they have consequences.
Right.
Not just for ourselves, but for the entire web of life.
It's about acting with intention, with compassion, with that sense of responsibility for the well-being of all.
And finally, I think Jainism offers this powerful message of hope.
Okay.
It reminds us that we have this capacity for transformation, for growth, that even amidst life's challenges, we can choose a path of compassion, of wisdom, of liberation.
Those are definitely messages worth carrying with us as we navigate, the ups and downs of life.
Absolutely.
So as we say goodbye to the fascinating world of Jainism, what's one final thought?
Ooh, a final thought.
One lingering question that you would leave our listeners with.
We've explored how Jainism encourages us to live ethically, to act with intention, to minimize harm, but it all kind of begs the question, how can we, in our own unique ways, embody those values in our daily lives?
That's a powerful question to ponder.
It is.
And with that, deep divers, we've reached the end of our journey.
We have.
Thank you so much for joining us as we explored this rich history, the philosophy, the practices of this ancient faith.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope this deep dive has inspired you to learn more, to consider the ways in which these teachings can maybe enrich your own life and the world around you.
I think they can.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.